The night library. There's a rule in Blackridge about the library. It isn't written on any sign, and the staff won't say it out loud, but everyone who's grown up there knows it. You do not go to the library after closing. The building itself doesn't look frightening. No stone gargoyles, no cracked statues, no thunder hanging permanently over it like in movies. It's just an old red brick structure tucked between the police station and the bakery, with wide windows and flowers planted beside the front steps. But every child in Blackridge learns to cross the street when they walk past it after dark. And every adult learns to pretend they don't know why. Evan didn't believe in town rules. He had come back only because his mother died and someone had to clean out the house. He had left Blackridge at 18, promising himself he wouldn't return until he was successful. He returned at 31, jobless, tired, broke, and angry at how small the town still felt. He stayed in the house overnight for the first time since childhood. Empty rooms, empty closets, the faint smell of dust and old perfume. He lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, and remembered something he had forgotten until that moment. His mother had worked at the library. He could still picture her keys on the hook by the door. A heavy ring of them, too many for one building. She had never walked home after dark. She was always home before the sun died. He closed his eyes, trying to sleep, and failed. Grief is loud. Silence is louder. He got up, put on his jacket, and walked. The streets were nearly empty. The bakery window glowed warm. The police station lamps burned flat fluorescent. And there the library waited exactly where it had always been, its steps rinsed with moonlight, its doors shut. Evan didn't mean to go there. He just found himself standing in front of it. The big wooden doors wore the same brass handles he remembered, the same soft shine from 1,000 hands. A sign beside them read, "Closed. 9 p.m." He checked his phone. 11:47 p.m. He smiled at himself without humor. Adult now, not afraid of fairy tale rules. He walked down the steps, meaning to go home. Then he heard something move inside. Not a creak, not pipes, pages, thousands of them, turning at once. A breeze pushed out through the mail slot, smelling faintly of rain and old paper, and something sweeter underneath, like fruit beginning to rot. Evan's skin prickled. He pressed his ear to the door. Silence again. Then a whisper. Not words, a susurration, like a chorus of mouths shaping syllables, just too quietly to understand. He pulled back, heart tripping, and laughed. "Wind," he said out loud, trying to steady himself. The doorknob turned under his hand. He hadn't touched it. Just the thought of touching it had been enough. The handle twitched again, slightly, almost politely, an invitation. His mother's face bloomed in his mind, not in life, but in memory, hunched over bills at the kitchen table, rubbing her temples, saying, "I wish I could stop hearing it when I leave." He hadn't asked what she meant. He wished he had. Something slid against the other side of the door. The whispering grew clearer, like 100 voices, all breathing on the same word at once. Evan should have left. He pushed the door open instead. It didn't resist him. It didn't groan with age. It glided like a lung drawing breath. The entryway light was off, but the library wasn't dark. It glowed with a weak greenish haze, as though the light were leaking up between the floorboards instead of shining down from fixtures. Every lamp was off. Every desk was empty. And every aisle was full of sound. The whispering, now that he had stepped inside, was unmistakably reading. Layer upon layer of voices speaking from deep in the stacks, too many to count, too low to understand, all moving at once. He turned, meaning to leave. The door was already closed. He hadn't moved. He hadn't touched it. He reached for the handle, and his fingers brushed wood instead of metal. It had simply gone. Not locked. Gone. Where the door handle had been was smooth grain, aged and seamless. Evan's throat dried. He turned slowly. Every book in the library was open, not simply turned slightly or forgotten on tables. Wide open, pages exposed, spines cracked back like ribs. From floor to ceiling. On carts. On chairs. On the checkout desk. Even the ones on high shelves crowded with dust, open, facing outward like faces turned to him. The whispering came from them. They were reading themselves. A page near his feet turned on its own, crisp and deliberate. Evan had the sudden sensation, as bright and undeniable as a lightning flash, that he was late. Not late to arrive. Late to be included. "Hello," he called. Because silence is worse without words to break it. "Is someone here?" The whispering paused. Not all of it, not at once, but sections of the library went still as though turning an ear. The history section quieted. The children's section hushed. Somewhere far back, something large shifted its weight. Then one book near him spoke. Not out loud. That would have been less terrible. He felt the words articulate under his skin, as though they were being whispered directly into the soft part of his brain where memory lives. "Don't be afraid. We've been waiting a long time for your voice." He stumbled backward, striking a table. The books on it fluttered like startled birds, then settled, spines trembling. He grabbed the nearest closed volume and hurled it across the room. Every book shivered as it flew. It hit the carpet, open midair, and landed face down, still reading. The whispering rose and fell like wind running through leaves. He was shaking. "I'm dreaming," he told the air. "This is grief. Sleep deprivation. It's nothing." A soft laugh answered. Not human, not unkind, just old. The floor beneath him warmed, like something was waking up in the wood. The smell of rain and rot ripened. Evan became aware of movement deep below in the foundation, as though the building had more than a basement, as though it had roots. He remembered his mother rubbing her temples. "I wish I could stop hearing it when I leave." He whispered, "Mom worked here." The whispering changed. It focused. Hundreds of voices aligned into one chord. He felt it in his ribs. Books pivoted on tables, softly turning pages toward him, exposing paragraphs that breathed like mouths. She was a fine listener, the library said, but she never agreed to read for us. She refused. Something touched his ankle. Not a hand. Not a claw. A bookmark. One of the long ribbon bookmarks, used in reference volumes, slid slowly around his ankle and tugged, gentle as an unspoken suggestion. He kicked it away. It slithered back into a dictionary and closed itself inside. He moved down the aisle, not toward the exit, there wasn't one anymore, but deeper, because dread does not always move backward. It pulls inward like a riptide. The farther he walked, the lower the shelves seemed to bow, as though leaning closer to hear him breathe. The whispering knit itself tighter. Snatches of sentences surfaced and drowned before he could catch them. Names he didn't recognize. Dates that hurt to think about. Descriptions of rooms that felt like places he had never seen but already knew. He turned a corner and entered the children's section. Once, this had been bright carpet with animal pattern rugs and beanbag chairs and thick books with smiling bears. Now all the picture books lay open, pages warped, colors faded to bruised pastels. A teddy bear sat upright against a shelf with both of its black button eyes sewn shut with red thread. Evan had never seen that before. He knelt against his own better sense and lifted the teddy bear. It was warm, not from the air, from inside. He dropped it. It fell without a sound. The whispering here was thinner, higher, childish, but not innocent. Pages tittered. An alphabet book opened and closed itself like jaws. From beneath a low table came a soft dragging sound, as though something boneless were pulling itself closer. He stood up fast. "Stop," he said, to the air, to the shelves, to the sinking heat in the floor. "I'm not playing this. I'm leaving." The library answered without anger. "There is nowhere else to go. We only close our doors when the living world turns its back on us." The steps beneath him lengthened. He realized there was an extra aisle now that he hadn't noticed. A long, narrow corridor between shelves that hadn't been there before, yawning deep and shadowed. No overhead light reached it. The books there weren't bound in cloth or leather. They were bound in something smoother. A faint, steady sound issued from the dark passage. Breathing. Slow. Wet. Something there knew its own name and did not need to say it. Evan backed away. The floorboards flexed. Not old wood creak, muscle. He turned and ran. Shelves warped, aisles lengthened, rugs crawled. He sprinted past tables that had been closer a second before, past the reference desk where monitors blinked to life with static, past the security gates that had vanished and now appeared again 5 feet to the left. He reached the front wall. There was no door at all anymore. Just books. The whispering swelled. His vision went gray at the edges. He pounded the brick between shelves, felt it give beneath his palm, soft as clay. "Let me out," he shouted. The library did not raise its voice. It lowered it. The whisper sank into his teeth, his bones. "We are full of stories no one reads anymore. Full of names no one speaks. Do you know what happens to words when they are forgotten?" He choked out, "They disappear." A pause. Then, "No. They stay. They stay and they wait. We remember everything." Something heavy shifted below, down in the root-dark foundation. He imagined vast pages pressed in earth, soaked with groundwater, swelling like lungs. He imagined his mother's footsteps across the lobby, pausing at the threshold each evening. He felt, suddenly and with terrible clarity, that the library knew him. Not as a visitor, as a successor. A listener, it breathed, but also a voice. "We are tired of speaking only to ourselves. Read." A book peeled itself from a nearby shelf and hung in the air between them. Its cover was blank. Its pages were not printed. They were written in handwriting he recognized. His mother's. He took a step forward, unsteady. The first page held his name at the top, in her slanted, careful script. The lines below were full, not with stories, but with nights, with worries, with things she had never said out loud poured onto paper so anyone, might carry them. The whispering hushed around him as he read. Not aloud, just enough that the words touched air. His lips moved. The library exhaled. Light rippled weakly across the ceiling like reflection off deep water. The floor warmed to fever heat. Shelves straightened. A sense of vast relief rose through the room like a tide. Something in the deep stacks took its first full breath in years. Evan tried to stop reading. He couldn't. The words flowed like water poured downhill. His mother's fear. Her exhaustion. Her days catalogued in slow, careful lines. How she had heard voices in the stacks after hours. How the books sighed when she walked away. How she woke with sentences crawling up the inside of her skull like ivy. He reached the last entry. "If I don't say yes, it will take Evan instead." The sentence bled off the page mid-stroke. The book snapped shut like a jaw. The library waited. He whispered, "You promised her." The air moved. Not wind. Agreement. "We promised to wait," said the whispering chorus. And we did. He backed away. Tears he hadn't felt start falling, now running cold down his cheeks. "You lied," he said hoarsely. Silence. Then a shifting, uncomfortable ripple through the shelves, as though the building itself were rearranging how it felt about the sentence. "We remember everything," it said finally. "But promises are only words. Words live to be spoken again." The aisle behind him lengthened, stretched into a throat. The blank-covered book drifted forward like a hungry animal sniffing at a hand. He understood. Not sacrifice. Occupation. The library wanted a mouth. Not someone to be eaten. Someone to read. He heard his mother's voice in his own head, tired, sad, loving him. And something in his chest broke so cleanly it didn't hurt at first. He closed the book gently and held it to him like a child. "Then you'll have one," he said. "Mine. But you don't get to take anyone else. Not kids. Not anyone who wanders in by mistake. If I read for you, you listen to me. You let them go." The floor stopped breathing. The whispering narrowed to a thin thread. Far below, something old considered the bargain. It was not moral. It was not kind. But it was lonely. And lonely things know the value of company. The blank book grew warm against his palms. Agreed. The door's handle bloomed back into existence, behind him like time reversing. Cold night air seeped through the crack around the frame. The teddy bear in the children's section lay back against the shelf and cooled. The deep dark aisle folded itself away, vanishing between nonfiction and biographies as though it had never been. Evan opened the book. He began to read. Not his mother's words anymore. Others. Forgotten ones. Voices that had waited so long they barely remembered what breath felt like. Names that had once been said with love and had not been said again in years. Lives that had happened and then fallen through memory like leaves through water. He read until his voice went raw. The library hummed like a hive around him, not hungry now, but fed. When he finally closed the book, slowly, carefully, morning light had begun to leak into the windows. The real lamps flickered on with the sun's timer. The building looked ordinary again. The door swung open without sound. Outside, the street was quiet, dew brightening the flowers by the steps. Evan stepped into the day with a blank book under his arm and knew two things with absolute certainty. First, the town rule had been for a reason. Second, he would be back every night. Not because he was trapped. Because he had said yes. Because stories do not die. They wait. And in Blackridge, when the library closes and the lights go out and the last staff member locks the door and walks away, the pages begin to turn again. Patiently, hopefully, waiting for the man who listens. Waiting for the voice that reads. Waiting for the night librarian.